Jared Polin, phronosphoto.com, and this is a user guide for the Canon EOS R6. Now, if you purchased one, congratulations on purchasing this mirrorless camera. If you're looking for more information on this camera, we have a full real-world review that you could find in the links down below, so you can check out my full review of this camera. So this video is going to cover the very basics of setting up your R6, but it's also going to go into details on how I would personally set up the menu, because it's important to have someone walk you through it, because not everybody's going to read the actual user guides that come with the camera, though it's not a bad resource to turn to if you do have a question. But I'm going to go through what I think are the most important settings to set, as well as what each one of them means, so that you can have a better understanding of how you can set the camera for yourself, because this is just how I would do it for me, and you may find over time that you want to set it a certain way for yourself. So we're going to start at the very basic beginning part, and remember that if you want to skip ahead because you don't need the basic information like how to put a lens on, that's okay, just jump ahead to the next section. But now let's start with the outside of the camera. Like I said, this is the very basic stuff, but it's all right if you don't know this. You just need someone to show it to you, and that's why we're making this video. Let's start on the bottom of the camera with where the battery goes. Right here, you just flick this door open, and look, there's your battery. You pop it out. You can only put it in one way. You can't put it in the wrong way. You can just put the contacts down, move the white switch out of the way with the battery, pop it in, and go boom like that. You close the door and you're good to go. As a little word of warning or advice, when you pop the door open, the camera will turn itself off because it knows not to shoot when the door is open, so make sure you have that closed. You may notice that there is this little contact here. This is if you get a battery grip, an external battery grip that allows you to put two batteries in, as well as shoot vertical and have other buttons and dials on it. That's where that would plug into on the bottom of the camera. And as a good rule of thumb, it's good to have multiple batteries when you're starting out. Just in case something happens to one or one battery isn't charged, you at least have another one as a backup. It's a couple bucks extra to spend, but it's always good because when you're traveling and one battery is out of juice and the other isn't, well, at least you have a backup. Next, moving on to the memory card slot. Right here on the right side of the camera, you have your memory card door. You just go like that, let it flip open. You can see that there are two SD card slots. Right now, I only have one card in there. I personally shoot, when I'm doing all of my shoots and I have two slots, I'm always putting two cards in to the camera because I'm able to shoot redundant, which means the same files to one card as the other card, just in case something ever happens to one card, you still have the other card with the data. So right here is your SD card. We have in here a ProGrade Digital 64 gigabyte card. You can check them out at progradedigital.com. Now look, we've got this notch on the top of the SD card. You can see that there's a picture. You got the picture of it, Steven? A little bit? Yeah, there's a picture right there. It shows you which way the notch goes. You just put the card in the slot, you press it in, you hear the click, that means it's in. To take it out, you press it and you take it out just like that. Close the door and you are good to go again. Next, let's move on to the lens. How do we take it off? Because it's already on. And how do we put it on? This was one of the scariest things ever when I started taking photos was, oh my God, how do I take off the lens and how do I put another one on? Well, it's really simple. So I'm not gonna show you, I'm gonna take it off, don't look. All right, so we have the lens off. Right here inside of the camera, this is your shutter. You have the option of having this come down when the camera's off, which is what I recommend, and I believe it's on by default. It actually is on by default because we reset this camera to start fresh to make this video. Never touch that. Never look, well, you can look at it, but you generally don't want to have it open too long. You don't want to let dust in, but never touch that shutter because the sensor is behind it. You don't want to break that shutter, and you also don't want to scratch a sensor. But do you see this red line right here? You've got a red line right there on the camera, and you have a red line right here on the lens. All you need to do is line both of them up like this. They're lined up, and in this case, if it's in my left hand, I'm turning it away from me until we hear the click, and it's now on. To remove the lens, I always recommend that you turn off the camera first. You press this button right here, that's your lens release button, and you rotate it, and the lens comes off. So you can switch lenses. It's not that hard to do. You line it up right there, line it up here, and go boom. Now, if you're wondering what lens I have on the camera right now, this is the 50mm 1.8 RF lens. It's a pretty affordable 50mm 1.8 that I highly recommend if you're just starting out. You pick up something like this for like $200. It's not very expensive, but you can check out the entire RF lineup that Canon has at canon.us/FroRF lenses. They have a ton of different lenses there that you can look at. I do highly recommend the RF lenses. They are all fantastic. Now that we have the lens on, the battery in, and the memory card in the camera, how do we turn it on? Well, we got an on and off switch right here. It says off currently. We just flick it to on. I know I said that this, was very simple, and I know this is very basic stuff, but it's good to learn. If you want to jump ahead, but it's always good to do this. This activates your camera. Obviously, it powers it on. To turn it off, you just flick it back the other way, just like that, and your camera turns off. Now, moving around to this part of the camera, we have our mode dial. I currently have it set in manual so that I can fully control the camera, but you may get it out of the box and it may be set on the green mode, which is full auto. That's not a bad place to start when you're just starting out. That means the camera's gonna make all the decisions for you, but as you become more competent in your photography skills, you can unlock the power of your camera simply by switching out of the green mode, and you can do FV, you can do P, which stands for program. It's like a full auto mode that gives you a little bit more control. Next, we have TV. This activates channel 29. It actually doesn't activate channel 29. Wayne's World doesn't come on, but TV stands for shutter priority, meaning if you want the shutter to be 1/500th of a second, it's going to be 1/500th of a second, and then the camera's gonna change the aperture, and it's gonna change the ISO to make sure that 1/500th of a second is what you get. Next, we go to AV, which stands for aperture priority. So if you want it to say f4, it's gonna stay at f4, and just like shutter priority, aperture priority means you lock it in where you want it, and the camera's gonna do the rest of the job for you to make sure that your exposure is proper. Then we get back to manual. B stands for bulb. That means if you hold down your finger on the shutter button, the shutter will stay open until you remove your finger from the shutter button. Next up, we've got C1, C2, and C3. These are actually pretty powerful C buttons. They're custom buttons, meaning let's say if you are shooting indoors, you have your settings that you want to have locked in, you set that to C1. Then say you go outdoors and it's much brighter, you can quickly switch to C2 and it's going to have all the settings set the way that you set them for being outdoors. It just helps you speed up your workflow to make sure that you're getting the settings right the way that you want them. And then we have the camera module right here on the dial. That's for when you want to shoot in video. Continuing on with the buttons on the camera, now that we've gotten the dial out of the way, this is your shutter button. This is how you're going to control your autofocus as well as your taking the picture. If you press it halfway down, that's going to allow you to activate the autofocus. And then when you press it fully, you can feel the difference. Can you feel it with me? Go ahead. Just massage that button just a little bit. Press it softly. You can feel it gives a little bit, but then when you press it fully, it gives even more. So one is activating the autofocus, and then when you fully depress it down, that's when you're taking the picture. Moving to the multifunction button, which is what this one is right here, you would press that, and that gives you a lot of control of a ton of settings while you're looking through the camera. So if you want to quickly change one thing or the other, you can hit this button, and then right in front of your eye in the electronic viewfinder, you can make the menu changes. Right here is a command dial. This is where you can set whether you want to control the aperture or you want to control the shutter speed. Conversely, there's another dial right here, which is on the back thumb. This could be the shutter speed or the aperture as well. It becomes personal preference for how you'd like to set it up for your shooting style. Now there's a lock button right here that allows you to get John Locke to come back from Lost. That's a deep pull. That is a real deep pull. Lost was good until it went off the rails. Anyway, that's where you can lock certain functions so you maybe can't touch the screen or some of the dials don't make any changes, so you can lock and unlock it right there. Now this red button that looks like a record button is, Steven, what is it? It's a record button. That's exactly what it is. That's how you record your video. You can start and you can press it again to stop recording video. Moving over to the center top of the camera, this is your hot shoe. This is where you're going to put a flash if you have an external flash. This is where you can put a microphone if you're going to be recording audio because you're using this to shoot video. That is your hot shoe. And you see this line right here? I honestly never knew what it was, and I had to do some research, and then I was like, oh, that makes sense. I don't even know why it's here. Basically, what this means is that's where the plane of the image sensor is inside of the camera. So the inside of the camera, just follow it over, that's where the plane of the sensor is. I don't even know why that's important, but if you ever needed to know, that's exactly what that is. Let me jump in here real quick because I want to show you FROPAK 3 in action on this image taken with the Canon EOS R6. Let's start with Prestige Worldwide, followed by Mount Airy. Then we've got Mentos, King Contrast, Capone, look how awesome Capone is, and Fifth Element. Now let me show you this from FROPAK 1. Let's go ahead and hit this with some Skittles. Boom. Look at what Skittles does. Skittles is awesome for landscapes as well as wildlife and nature. Now, if you're looking to speed up your RAW workflow or give yourself a great starting point, we created 15 all-new custom Lightroom presets that you can check out right now at froknosphoto.com/FROPAK3. While you're over there, you can play with the sliders to see the befores and the afters, and if you decide to pick them up right now, they are currently on sale. Or if you want to grab Skittles with FROPAK 1, FROPAK 2, and FROPAK 3, you can get the triple play bundle and save even more. Now, let's get back to the video. Coming around here to the back of the camera, we have your electronic viewfinder. This is what's called an EVF, electronic viewfinder. An OVF is what we had with our DSLRs. That is an optical viewfinder, meaning when you look through, you're seeing what's happening through the actual lens. In this case, you're seeing basically think of it like a mini TV. Your lens is gathering light and the image sensor is then taking it and showing it to you in here in real time. You won't see any lag. These viewfinders are fantastic. You put your eye up to this to take your pictures. Oh, while we're at it, can I show you how to properly hold the camera when you are shooting? This is how you do it. You go like this, you get your wings flapping a little bit. You tuck your elbows in like this. You put it up to your eye. In my case, I'm left-eyed, so I use my left eye. If you use your right eye dominant, then you put your right eye up to it. But you see where this hand is? You put it underneath. A lot of times you see people do this. That's the quickest way to know that someone's an amateur, is this, but it's also not as stable. More stable is this. You want those 3 points of contact. You go boom, boom, and your feet become the third. You're like a human tripod. I know it's my nickname sometimes, #human tripod, but you just do this, and this is how you hold the camera. You may also see some people doing this. Look, if you buy this camera, there's a good possibility that you shouldn't shoot like this. It's not very stable. It's just much more professional for you to put your eye up to the camera to get the photo. The only time I will say that it's okay not to look through the camera is if you need to put the camera all the way up in the air like this or all the way down low and you can't get your eye into the viewfinder. That's when I'm okay with you doing that. Now, what is this little thing below the optical viewfinder? This is your proximity sensor. So what it means is when you put your eye up to the viewfinder, that is where you're going to see the image. Let me demonstrate here. Flicking on the camera. Let me rotate this screen right here. You see how we have the screen on right now because my eye isn't against it? But watch this as I block the proximity sensor. Now it switches to the electronic viewfinder and back again. It's basically instant, so that's what's happening. You can control this inside the camera. You can change the settings to which comes on and which doesn't go on. But yeah, you just do this. And if you're wondering because you're shooting in the rain one day and your screen just won't stay on, just make sure you actually don't have water up against this sensor right here because it can actually trigger it, which is what it's done to me in the past. If you're somebody who wears glasses and you want to shoot with your glasses, but it looks blurry through the viewfinder for some reason, or if your eyes are just blurry and you want to try and tighten it up a little bit, we've got a diopter right here. You basically focus on something in a distance, or actually better than focusing at something on the distance, you'll see inside of the electronic viewfinder when you put your eye up to it, a bunch of numbers at the bottom of the screen. Or if you go into the menu system and it looks blurry to you, well then just change the diopter. Either rotate it up or rotate it down until it looks nice and sharp and clean and nice and crisp, and that way you know that your diopter is set perfectly for your eyes or for your glasses. Since I just mentioned the screen, here it is right here. It flips out and it rotates. You can actually shut it in case you're traveling and you don't want anything hitting against it. I've had these, I've had a screen since 2003 3 with my first DSLR, and knock on some wood, I don't even want to say it, but this can protect your screen if you're putting it in a bag. You don't want to bounce it around, but you can protect the screen like that. Now this comes out, flips out, and rotates so that if you're shooting video or like this, if we're vlogging, you could see it right here. Or if you need to shoot a photo over your head, you can hold it up like this, or you could hold it down like this near the ground if you want to shoot from the hip or you want to shoot from lower. But this is also a touch screen. So everything you do in the menu, you'll be able to touch this and control it. It's not like MC Hammer you can't touch this, you can touch this. They got MC Hammer once to make a new Canon commercial. He was like, can touch this. That's right, it's a good joke. It's a good joke, whatever. All right, we're gonna rotate it back like this. Continuing with more buttons, we've got the rate button, R-A-T-E. The rate button is, say you take a picture, you really like it, you can set this to rate the picture to say 5 stars. And so when you bring it into Adobe Lightroom, it's gonna be rated as a 5-star already. Now, if you don't use that button, you can change it. You can map it to something else inside of the menu. Speaking of menu, this is your menu button. You go ahead and hit that. Let me turn on the camera and show you. And the menu then pops on. We're gonna go through the full menu system in the next section. We're gonna set all of that up. So turn the camera back off. Over here, we have a joystick. This is where you can move your focusing points. You just put your thumb on it. It's in a really good spot. You can move those focusing points. You can press it to get your focusing points to go back to the center. You can go through the menu system. You can move around an image when you zoom in on it. You see that, Steven? Zoom in on it, because we've got the zoom in button. If you want to enlarge an image while you're looking through the viewfinder or at the LCD screen, when you're previewing it, you can press that and you can zoom in. You could either move it around, pinch to zoom, just like your phone. It's real easy to do. Next up, we have the info button. It does exactly this. It gives you info. I'll turn the camera on again. As you hit it, you can see it's changing the options on the screen. So you find one that works for you and you go from there. Next to that is the Q button. This is a really powerful button. You can see there are so many different options. You could use the joystick that we just talked about to move around, or you can physically touch it. Like MC Hammer says, you can touch this. You can physically touch different things on the screen, and that's how you can control it. That Q button is super duper powerful. Below the Q button, you have a command wheel, which you can rotate. That can change your aperture if you want to set it to that. That can change your ISO. Remember, most of these buttons, if not all of them, are mappable to different types of settings that you want to set. These cameras are highly adaptable to your needs. You have a set button right in the middle, so you can just hit set. It's like your enter and OK button. Below that, we've got your play button. You hit play, it shows you back the images right here on the screen. And next to that, you have a trash can that when you hit it, we're at Sesame Street and Oscar the Grouch comes out. That's actually how you delete images. I recommend not deleting images inside the camera. Save that for later because you don't want to accidentally delete something that you didn't want to delete. Now let's flip to the bottom of the camera. We already know that this is where your battery goes, but this right here is your tripod socket. This is where you plug it into a tripod, or you screw in your tripod plate right into the bottom of the camera. Now over here on the right-hand side, this is where you have all of your inputs. You have these rubber things that move out of the way. That helps weather seal your camera, so make sure that those are in there. You've got a microphone input. That's where you plug in the mic going in, so you want to record the audio. You have a headphone, and by headphone, I actually mean headphone output. So that's where you plug in to listen to your headphones. You have a remote control button, so that's where you would plug that into. You have an HDMI, a micro HDMI port, as well as USB-C. Now we love the USB-C because you can charge the battery. If you have one of those power bricks that can charge a phone with USB-C, you can now charge your camera. So if you're going to be using it for an extended period of time, or say you're sitting on a bus somewhere, I don't know why you'd be on a bus, but you're touring and you need more juice in your camera, just plug it in, let it charge up, and you're good to go. And now the front of the camera. We already know that this is the button that releases your lens. You press that in to unlock and release the lens. Right here by the EOS, you see a hole that is a microphone. And right here over next to the Canon, that is another hole for a microphone as well. The audio that it's going to give you is going to be okay. It's not going to be the greatest audio since sliced bread, but it does get the job done. This is a light indicator. It's an LED light that will blink if you're going to take photos, say 2 seconds, 5 seconds on timer. This will blink and then go solid when it's about to take the picture. And it also may help you in lower light situations when it needs help focusing, but I always turn that function off, and we'll see that in the function menu as well. We've got a depth of field preview button, which is something similar to what you had with your film cameras. I've never used it with my film cameras. I've never used it with my digital cameras, but you can map this button to some other function that you find more useful. And right here, we have an RF receiver. So if you want to control the camera from far away, you could like press a button, control it through RF, and then you can trigger the camera from there. I just realized I forgot a couple of buttons on the back here. We've got AF on, that's if you want to do back button focus. That's not something I personally recommend. You may find people on the internets, the internets of things, telling you that, oh, we should back button focus. I don't like doing back button focus, especially with these mirrorless cameras, and especially the R6, which has fantastic autofocus on its own. Next, you have these two buttons on the right-hand side. The one on the right is for controlling activating focusing points. This is more of, both of these buttons are more of something old school that we used to do with DSLRs, that we don't really use the normal functions that they're set to because we don't have to anymore. But the good news is you can map this button out for something else and use it for something that has more function for your needs. And now it's time to walk you through the menu settings to show you how I would set up this camera. Now, before I do that, you may notice there's something different here on the set. This is what's called an Atomos recorder. This is what allows us to record the menu system so that you can see it on your screen perfectly as you would see it on the back of yours. Now, the only difference here is that when I'm plugged into this, I can no longer use the touch screen on the back of the R6, which means I'll have to use the joystick and other buttons to do that. But remember, in the menu system, you can touch the screen for whatever menu setting that you want because you have touch screen options there. Now, let's hit menu. Do you see all of the options? I've got 4 different options under the first one, but right now I'm in auto mode. I'm still in the green mode. Now, when I switch out of the green mode, watch what happens. We're gonna go all the way to manual. I'm gonna hit menu again. Holy schmageggies. That's the word I decided to use. There's now a ton of more menu options that you have because when you get into the manual modes, you can unlock the power of this camera, and that's what I want to do here is if you're going to be in the aperture priorities or shutter priorities, and you're going to control the camera, and I'm going to show you how I would set it in the manual modes so that you can get more power and unlock the power of Grayskull. All right. Right now, we've got the first thing we see in red menu number 1 is image quality. As you can see from my shirt, I'm the guy who likes to shoot RAW. So here are your options. You can set it to JPEG, you can set it to RAW. I personally turn this dial, you can touch the screen, remember, to RAW so that I'm shooting RAW. Now, if you don't know what RAW is, it's the raw data that comes off of the image sensor. It's not processed, it's not compressed, whereas a JPEG is a compressed file. RAW files are larger, but they have more data, and you can go back and edit them time and time again without losing any quality. Whereas with a JPEG, it's what's called a baked file. Once you shoot it, it's baked in, and you can't really do the same amount of tweaks. You don't have as much data. RAW file, lots of data. JPEGs, it has data, but a heck of a lot less. It's more compressed. That's why I like to shoot RAW. Now, if you're just starting out, I will recommend that you shoot RAW plus JPEG. It's gonna take up more space on your memory card, but you're gonna thank me in the future when you realize that RAW files are just better when you go and edit them in your editing software. Keep in mind that every RAW file needs to be tweaked in a software like we use Adobe Lightroom, where I have to edit each and every RAW file, but you get quick at it. You can sync different files. You can use presets. We've got presets, fronosphoto.com/fropack3. You can check those out. We'll talk more about those later in this video, but just remember that RAW files have more data and JPEGs have less. So in this case, I'm going to RAW and I'm gonna set the JPEGs to nothing, and I hit the set button, and now I am just shooting RAW. Let me cut in here real quick and remind you that you can check out the entire Canon RF lens lineup over at canon.us/FroRF lenses. Over there, you can see everything that they offer, including this 50mm 1.8, which I highly recommend as a lens that you pick up. Now, let's get back to the video. Next up, we've got crop/aspect ratio. It is currently set to full. Now, full means you're using that full image sensor to capture the image. They also have 1.6, which is a 1.6x crop mode, which is going to crop down on the sensor and put it into 1.6x mode. So it looks like you're magnifying the image or you're getting closer with your zoom, but in essence, you're just taking away from the pixels that you're capturing. You've got 1:1 mode, which is very similar, say, if you were shooting for Instagram and you wanted square, you could do that. You've got 4:3, which is old TV style, and you've got 16:9, which is movie style. Now, I do want to tell you something, that if you're shooting RAW, which I do highly recommend, that even if you're in, say, 1:1, you're going to see an overlay inside of the viewfinder that, you know what, I'm just going to show you. I'm going to go to 1:1, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to take off the lens cap. That's 1:1. You see how it's a square? But we can change it back. We can go like this. We can go back to full and show you. And now it's back to using the full sensor. So here we go. We're going back to the menu. Now, the reason I bring this up is because if you shoot in JPEG, it's going to be cropped 1:1 no matter what. So you can't get that information back after the fact. Moving on to the second menu option, you've got exposure compensation. I generally leave this set exactly where it is. Now, I may not hit on every single function of this camera, or this would be an 8-hour-long video. I'm going to go to the things that I personally use. I may skip around. I may skip some things. Now, you can dig into those menus yourself, and you can see if there's something in there you want to know more about, but I'm giving you the top-level stuff that I personally would do. ISO speed settings. Now, it's currently set to ISO auto. I personally don't use that. If you're just starting out, it's not a bad idea to start in auto ISO. That means the camera's going to set the ISO for you. I go in here and I'll go to 100. Look, it goes from 100 all the way up to 12,800, 25,600. Wow, all the way up to 102,400. So you can individually select your ISO yourself or leave it on auto. I like to select it myself. Keep in mind, you can control your ISO from outside of the camera. There's easy buttons that are already set for that, but I'm just showing you the menus right now. ISO speed range means you could limit it. If you don't want it to go up to 102,400, you could limit it to say, I don't want it to go past 12,800 because you don't want it to rain grain. You could do that. You've got auto range, meaning if you have auto ISO on, it will not go any lower than 100 because it can't, and it won't go any higher than 25,600. Next in the menu, we've got minimum shutter speed is currently set to auto. Now you see this thing that says info and help? Yeah, that's like a built-in user's guide inside of the camera. If you hit the info button, it's like help. It tells you exactly what it is. Takes effect in P and AV shooting modes, and then you can read the rest. So it's only affecting your auto modes. I just leave this set to auto, and I go from there because I'm always shooting in manual. Next, we have HDR PQ settings. Now, if you want to shoot HEIF format instead of JPEGs, you can go into here and you can make certain changes to give yourself an 8-bit file instead of a 10-bit file. If you need to get stuff out into the world quicker, there you could do it. I never set this because I just stick to shooting RAW and I don't change that. Next up, we have Auto Lighting Optimizer, which is currently set to off when you're in manual. Because I'm always in manual, it's always going to be off. Now, I like to not let the camera do most of the work. I want to make the decisions for me. So that's why some of these things I just leave on off. Highlight tone priority, I also leave this on off as well. Let's hit info to read about it. It says improves gradation in bright areas of images, highlights, enables or enhances, may increase noise in darker areas. The ISO speed value can be set from ISO 200 and above. Again, I want to be in control of everything, so I don't change this, I leave it on off. Anti-flicker shoot is currently set to disabled. Now, this is interesting. Let's say you're shooting inside of a gymnasium and they still have older lights that flicker. It's gonna help you not get any issues when you take the pictures in terms of the flickering that's going on. The camera's gonna be smart enough to know that, oh, it's flickering, wait a split second, wait a fraction of a second, and then it's gonna take the picture when it's not giving you that flicker. So that is a very useful mode in certain lighting situations where there may be flickering light. That's something you can set on the in the menus so that you can hit a button and activate it when you need to. Next up is external speed light control. If we're not using a flash, that really doesn't matter for us right now. Number 3, we've got white balance. I personally leave this on auto, which makes me eat some crow from what I said before. I don't let the camera make decisions. I do when it comes to auto white balance, especially if I'm in situations where the color temperature is changing all the time. But let me walk you through here and show you what you can do. You've got auto white balance, which is actually pretty good. You can change it to daylight, shade, cloudy, tungsten, white fluorescent light, flash, custom, and then color temperature. So you can control this. We dial it in for our lighting. We probably have it set right now with our cameras dialed into the lights that we're using. Next up, we've got custom white balance. That's if you have a gray card, you would go ahead and use this. We've got white balance shift bracketing. Nope, I leave that exactly where it is. Color space, I leave it on sRGB as well. Picture style is a whole different ball game. Now picture style, I generally leave on either auto or standard, but this is only affecting your JPEG files. This is what I was talking about baked. This is where you would go in and be like, oh, I'm doing a portrait, let me use portrait mode. Or I'm doing landscape, well, let me see, is there something here? Oh yeah, this is the best explanation I can give you. Let's say you shoot monochrome. That means it's getting rid of all the color, and you save it as a JPEG. You can never get that color back. Now, if you shot it in monochrome, but you shot RAW, the preview that you would see, I'm pretty sure, would give you a black and white on the back of the screen, but the raw color data is still there, that it maintains it, and you can get it back after the fact. That's what I mean by a baked file. If you took a whole bunch of wedding photos that you thought you were shooting color, but for some reason it was in monochrome, you can never get that back once you bake that file in. So personally, I either leave this in standard or auto, or I make some slight tweaks to it so that the preview image looks good to me, but it's not affecting my raw file. Clarity, I leave right where it is. Lens aberration correction is another thing that I leave right where it is as well. And then we move on to 4. Yes, this is long. This is a lot of stuff. I wish I could just send you my files, but I can't do that. So here we go. Long exposure noise reduction. Thankfully, it's off by default. That's new. I leave that off because I don't want the camera to add any noise reduction to my images. Keep in mind, it's going to affect the JPEG, not the RAW file. High ISO speed noise reduction, meaning the higher ISO you go, the camera's going to implement some noise reduction to compensate for any noise or grain that it might find. I put this on off. So I leave that off because I don't want it to do any corrections for me. Next up is something that I've never actually used and probably never will use. It says dust delete data. I don't go in there and mess with that setting at all. Number 5, we've got multiple exposures. Wow, that's something that I used to play with when I shot film. So what that is if you want to take one picture and take another picture, but have it go on top of your other pictures. Basically, the film isn't advancing because there's no film. But yeah, it would allow you to take 2 pictures on one frame. That's fun if you want to play around, so that is currently disabled. HDR mode, I have that off. I keep it off. We've got focus bracketing is another function that I keep off as well. Interval timer. It's great that this camera has that. Let's jump in there real quick. So you could enable it or you could disable it. So it would say every 10 seconds, it will take a photo for 10 shots. So it would take one photo, 10 seconds later, take another, 10 seconds later, take another, 10 seconds, take another, 10 seconds, take another. So you have all of those options. That's great for time lapse. That's great. I mean, that's a great thing to have built into the camera. Next up, we've got bulb timer is currently disabled, probably because I'm plugged into this HDMI port. We've got shutter mode. So right out of the box, it's set to electronic first curtain. That's where I shoot it. You also have electronic. Now, this is where you could shoot up to 20 frames per second with the electronic shutter, so you're gonna be taking a lot of photos. This is also if you wanna shoot in silent. So it's gonna be completely silent. A shutter will not come down at all. But if you're shooting with a flash, that's where you would wanna go in and use the mechanical shutter. But so the two that I use, electronic first curtain, as well as electronic when I wanna shoot silent, or I want to get those 20 frames per second. Next up is release shutter without card. I don't know why that is set to on. That's going to be off because you don't want to take pictures without film in the camera, which is in essence what that would have been doing. Next up, number 7 menu. Yes, there's still a lot of menus. We've got IS image stabilization mode. IS mode is currently on. That's your IBIS, your image stabilization. So if you're gonna hand hold and shoot at slower shutter speeds, the IBIS is gonna kick in and allow you to basically get a sharper image as long as the subject isn't moving. Now keep in mind that IBIS doesn't mean that it's gonna freeze your subject if they're running across and you're shooting at a slower shutter speed. If you're on a tripod, you can turn off IBIS most likely because you don't want it to be hunting and searching while it's already on stable ground. Generally speaking, it's going to be on for most of the time. Next up, we've got digital IS is currently off. Now this affects video. That's why the little video camera is there. That's if you want to have extra stabilization in there, but keep in mind, it's going to crop you in further to compensate for any extra shake that you might have. Followed by still photo IS, we have this set to auto as well. That means that the IS is going to be active the whole time, whether you're shooting photos or you're not shooting photos. Menu, now we are, oh geez, we're still in 7. We've got touch shutter is currently set to disabled. That's if you are going to touch the back of the screen and tell it to take a picture. I don't want that because sometimes my nose could actually do that. I have that disabled. Image review. Image review is one of those things that I absolutely hate. Review duration, I want off. So what this means is when you take a picture, if it was on 2 seconds, that means that the picture would stay on your screen or in your viewfinder for 2 seconds after you take the picture or until you press the shutter button halfway down again. So I turn that off. We've got viewfinder review is also on disabled as well. Back into the menu. We've got high-speed display. Being that we're plugged into the HDMI, that is currently grayed out, so I can't hit it, but we put it on the highest quality that you can get. Metering timer is set to 8 seconds. That's another thing that I leave on default. Exposure simulation is extremely important in this day and age, so I have it enabled the whole time. The only time you would disable this is if you're shooting with a flash or with strobe. What this means is when you have it enabled, you are seeing exactly what the exposure, the final image is going to look like. So if it looks super bright in your viewfinder like it's overexposed, then it's going to come out. That's what the picture is going to look like. Basically, it's showing you what the final result's going to be when you look through your electronic viewfinder. So that's why I always have it enabled if I'm using just my natural light. If I'm using strobes, then you're gonna change that because the strobe, it's not gonna be able to keep up with that, so you just turn it off for that section. Now, shooting info display, oh boy, there's a lot of stuff here. Screen info settings, look, these are all the different options that you can have up on your screen. You could have nothing up on your screen. You could have just this up on your screen. This becomes personal preference. I don't like a ton of detail on the screen because it kind of takes away from my ability to see what I'm shooting, but it becomes personal preference. You can turn some of these off, like, oh, I don't want this to show up, or I want this to show up. You can have all of those options that you can cycle through. Next up, we've got VF info toggle settings. Now you can change this when you hit, it's what you see in your viewfinder when you hit the info button. So you can see what the different options are right there. You can also hit info here and edit that screen. That becomes personal preference as well to find out what works best for you. Now VF vertical display is awesome. Canon added this where when you're shooting vertical, the info actually now shows up at the bottom of the viewfinder in vertical. So you go like this, the info rotates to the bottom. That is a plus, so you're not trying to read it sideways. Grid display is off. That's if you want to have the grid up to help you with your lines. I personally keep that off. Histogram display. Now you can have it set to the brightness or you could have it RGB. I rather see the brightness because that's more important for me. And display size is currently set to large by default. If you want to have your histogram in your viewfinder, I highly suggest you put it on small. Next, we've got focus distance. Now, when you're in manual focus, I'm not talking about the top dial being in manual. You literally flick the switch on the side of the camera. It's going to be what is displayed in the viewfinder when you do that. They actually have a mode that helps you with manual focus. Line up the lines, they're little triangles, and then boom, when it's in the middle, you know you're in focus. Would you like to take better pictures in only 11 days? Well, I created a free mini video course that you can sign up for right now at fronosphoto.com/11 days. Moving to number 8. So we've got VF display format. So you can see there's display 1 as well as display 2. Now, if you're someone who wears glasses and you can't get your eye all the way up into the viewfinder, you may find that display 2 works for you. I like it to be big and bright and just beautiful in the viewfinder and fill the whole screen. So I leave it on display 1. Next up, we've got display performance. We've got power saving is currently on, or smooth. Now smooth says quick moving subjects are displayed smoothly. That's what I want. I go into smooth, and that's where I set it. Number 9, we've got movie record quality. Now this is in the photo mode. If you hit the red record button, these are the settings that it's going to use. So you can see that these are the options that we have, but there's a lot more options when you flick that top dial and you go into the movie shooting mode. So this is all personal preference where you want to shoot it. Sound recording is currently set to auto. We can set the ISO speed settings for video. We can set the auto slow shutter for video as well. So it's going to set the slowest shutter. You can control where that is. And then we got the shutter button function for movies as well. You can half press to do meter plus autofocus, or you can go in here and you can have it meter plus 1 shot AF or metering only. I leave it on default to the one that it is set at. Now we're moving into the AF menu. I would call that the magenta menu or the pink menu. We've got AF operation is currently on 1 shot AF. What 1 shot means is that when you press your finger down halfway on the button, it's going to focus. And then if you don't move your finger off, it's going to keep that focus locked where it was. Now, AF servo is continuous autofocus. As long as you press the button halfway down, it's going to continuously autofocus on the subject. That's generally where we find ourselves shooting these days, unless you are shooting an inanimate object that is not going to go anywhere. We rely on the camera's autofocus system in servo to get the job done. Now you have AF methods. There's a lot of different ones. You've got L plus tracking, that's your lock-on tracking. You've got your spot AF, as well as 1-point AF. You've got expandable AF area. This is something that we used to use, but to be honest with you, I'll get to the other ones in a second, but I use the L plus tracking quite often, especially when I'm shooting moving subjects, because the autofocus inside this camera is top-notch and fantastic. You've got expanded AF area around, so that's going to give you a lot of focusing points here, but you then have to move those focusing points to move where the subject is going to be, or you have to move that dependent upon where that subject is going to be, so you're taking more control. You've got zone AF, where the camera takes more control. It just picks a zone and then it finds the right focusing point to use for you. Then we've got zone AF for vertical. Same thing, it's going to take the zones in the vertical area and it's going to use the focusing points that are in those boxes to find the right focusing point for the subject that you're shooting. And then we've got large zone AF horizontal, or as they like to write, horizontal, and it's very similar to the others. It's going to pick the focusing points that it wants based on the subject that you're photographing. But I like to stay on the lock-on tracking. Oh, and Steven just reminded me, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's my eyes or that this icon is supposed to be a smiley face plus tracking. I always thought it was just an L with parentheses and a smiley face under it. So it's the same thing. It does exactly the same thing. I thought it was lock-on tracking all these years, but it's he always corrects me because I've been doing this ever since we've gotten these cameras. But that's how I set it. Now, subject detect, you've got people and you've got animal as well as no priority. If you're photographing people, guess what you do, Steven? People. Yeah, you leave it on people. If you're photographing animals, you put it onto animals. But please don't make the mistake of not changing it back. Check on whatever subject you're going to be photographing. Make sure that you're set to the one that you want. We've got eye detection is currently enabled. Greatest feature ever since sliced bread is eye detection. It's gonna find the eye of your subject. Most of the time, it's gonna work really well. So I rely on that and it's awesome. Continuous AF is disabled. Now that may sound confusing. You're like, but I want autofocus to be continuous. Nah. What this means is even if you weren't pressing your finger halfway down on the button, the camera's gonna keep autofocusing. So if I'm looking back at Steven without pressing it, it's gonna try and just keep autofocusing. I don't want the camera to be constantly doing that. I want to tell the camera, now it's time to autofocus, now it's time to not. So that is disabled. We've got movie servo AF. So if you're shooting videos, you will have continuous autofocus for shooting videos. Touch and drag AF settings is really cool. Touch and drag AF is currently disabled. I like to go ahead and enable that. Then we've got positioning method. We've got relative versus absolute. I leave it on relative because I want my finger to go to the base. This one's hard to explain. You just have to try it. But where I put my finger, I want it to be relative to where it is on the screen. So if I put it top left, Well, then I want it to be relative to the top left. If I put it on bottom right, that's where I want it to show up, opposed to the absolute, which is what I don't use. Now, active touch area is, I generally use actually I use the full right side of the screen because it's great. Can you get this, Steven? You can see this? So basically, I would put my thumb back here, and this can help move the auto-focusing points. It is amazing that you could do that. That's if you need to quickly move the auto-focusing points, because 9 out of the 10 times, the camera's doing such a great job that you don't really need to tell it where to go. But if I was to tell it where to go, I would turn this on just like this. Number 2, under AF, we've got focus mode, autofocus. You could have the option for manual focus too, which I don't ever do. I stay in autofocus. You have manual focus peaking settings, which is actually pretty cool. You can set this to on so that if you're going to do manual focus and you want to see peaking, it's going to help you make sure that your edges are nice and sharp. You can change that to the different level, high or low, as well as the color from red, yellow, or blue, depending on what you want. That's personal preference. I don't really leave this on, but it will come in handy if you're shooting video, or honestly, if you're shooting manual photos, it's a setting that you definitely want to use. Focus guide, I leave this off. I don't need any help with my focus because the camera's really darn good. AF assist beam firing, I turn this off. I don't want this on at all, because if I'm shooting in a low light situation, say I'm shooting at a concert, which I haven't shot in a long time, but if somebody can constantly see that light going on, it's going to be annoying in their eye and it's going to be a distraction. So I personally turn that off, and I don't think you're going to run into any issues with your autofocus having that off. Next up, we've got the servo AF menu number 3. Wow, there's a lot that you can do with this. There's a lot of tweaking you can do depending on the scenario that you're photographing. Like number 1 is case 1 is for versatile multi-purpose setting. You can see that there's a person running. You can see there's a figure skater. Number 2 is case number 2 is a tennis player. Continue to track the subjects, ignoring possible obstacles. 3, instant focus on subject, suddenly entering your auto-focusing points. I personally leave it on 1 myself, but you can go in here and change the tracking sensitivity. You could also go all the way to auto, where the camera's gonna pick which one it thinks is the best for the scenario that you're in. It's all dependent on what you're doing. I generally leave it in 1 and I don't even think about it, and it's been perfectly fine for me personally. In the 4th page, there's even more custom controls that you can set here. We've got one-shot AF release priority. You can set that to release or set it to focus. Let's hit the help button, or in this case, info for help. Focus priority, no shot will be taken until the subject is in focus. Then you've got prioritize shutter release over focus. You just have to figure out which one is right for you in this, but we leave it set to focus where it is right out of the box. Switching tracking subjects is set to 1. You can read exactly what the screen does here. It's self-explanatory. Lens drive when AF is impossible. Let me read this one. Specify the lens operation when focus could not be achieved. Continue focus search. Well, yes, I kind of want it to do that. I want it, right, Steven? You want it to continuously focus for the search. You want it to find it if it can't find it. So we leave that to there. Now, limit AF methods means if there's a method that you never use, say I don't want to use zone or large zone or this, these will no longer show up as options if I'm switching between them. Once you hit OK, they no longer will be there. You see that little asterisk star there? That's the same when you hit this asterisk on the back here. That's how you can go ahead and control those and quickly change them. Keep in mind, a lot of these functions are still activated from the Q menu, so you don't always have to dive deep into the menu to do this. Next, we've got AF method selection control. That's with the MFN button. That's the one that I keep set, that if I want to control it from there, I use that. We've got orientation link AF point. So this means if you go vertical, you could set it to separate AF points. If you're in vertical, it's going to be in one place. If you're in horizontal, it's going to be in another. I set this same for both vertical and horizontal. Next up, we've got initial servo AF point for smiley face box. Generally, I have it set to auto. Steven likes to set it to AF point set for this middle one, which means you're going to actually have a box that can be active, but the camera's going to do all the work, but then you can move that focusing box if you want with your thumb on the back of the screen, which is what I like doing, or the joystick, but I like using the thumb so that you can always have it active if you need to tell the camera like, oh, look over here. This is where I want you to focus. I leave it on auto, but try both of them out to find out which one works best for you. Focus ring rotation, I leave this set where it's at. RF lens MF sensitivity is set where it is. And then sensitivity AF point select, I have that left at 0 as well. And next up, it's sensitivity AF point selection. If you want to move those points fast, then go up to the plus. If you want them to move slow, which I don't know why you would want to move your focusing point slow, you would go down, but I leave it on the faster one because I want to move those focusing points fast to get to where I need it to be. Moving on, we've got the playback menu. Now there's not a lot to change in here, so I just go to menu number 2 to see what else is there. Print order, photo book setup, nothing I ever touch. Raw image processing, if you need to edit raw files in the camera, you can convert it to JPEG. You could resize, you could crop, you could turn HEIF into JPEGs. I seriously wouldn't do any of this in the camera unless it was the last resort and you needed to quickly get something out there from a raw file. Or if you know that you need to quickly get something out there, just shoot RAW plus JPEG. So I don't do anything there. Slideshow, set image search conditions, I don't change those, but magnification, I do change. I actually go to actual size. That gives me a 1:1. But what is important about this is when I zoom, it's a 1:1 when you zoom in. This is great to check to see if you're in focus. And you'll know that say you want to focus on the eye, or the camera was focusing on the eye, and you zoom in and it goes right to the eye, you know that it was working. If it goes to like the background somewhere, you're like, yep, nope, wasn't working. So that's what I do. I don't do image jump, I don't change that. I don't switch, or this I leave to disabled. The rate button function, we talked about that earlier. You can change that to this rating, to protect, or to erase images. Nope, don't want to do that, so I don't really change any of those. Now 5, we've got playback information display. Holy 10 settings, holy Jesus. We don't want all 10 of these, right? So if I don't need this, I don't need the histogram one with all the colors, I get rid of that. I don't want this one, or that one, or that one, or that one, or that one. Oh Jesus, that's so much information that I don't want. Looks like I just want 1 and 2. I mean, that's really the stuff that matters to me. So that's what I go ahead and set it to because I don't want to have to switch through all of those other ones. So that's playback information display, highlight alert. Those are the blinky blinks. So if you shoot the sky and it's super bright, that's going to blink on you. I will go ahead and enable that one. We've got AF point display. I like seeing where my autofocusing point is. That's pretty important. So I go ahead and I enable that. It's going to show me where the autofocusing point was when I shot the picture. Playback grid, I leave off. Movie playback count, record time is fine. HDMI, HDR output is currently off as well. And we made it through a section super quick because there's not much to go through there. Next, we've got the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connections. Now, Canon has something called the Canon Connect app that is fan-freaking-tastic. It's what I use over at my desk when nobody's here and I need to take thumbnails of myself. I go into the app, I set it up, I connect it with my Wi-Fi settings, which I would go ahead and enable, but right now, because I'm plugged into HDMI, I can't go ahead and show you. There are other videos out there on the internet to show you how to do this. It's really simple to set up. Canon did a fantastic job with this. You set it up, you can control your camera from your phone. You can control the focusing points, change all of your settings, when to take the picture, do you want it to be on a timer or not a timer? You can switch into video mode and you can shoot videos with it. It is a great option if you're a one-man band and you just want to sit in a chair and take photos of yourself or to take video. Next, we've got reset communication settings in the purple menu. That's if you want to reset them. It's exactly what it is, but I haven't had to touch that before. Next, wrench under yellow, we've got record function plus card folder select. Here it shows you a camera for stills and a camera for video, and then it says separate. So it's set to disable. This means if it was set to enable, it would save photos to one card and it would save video to the other card. I like to have everything go to the same card. Now we've got record options for shooting stills. You can have standard, auto switch, record separately, which you could be like RAW to one card, JPEG to the other. I do record to multiple. I like to have, like I was saying earlier, I want RAW files, if I'm shooting RAWs, to go to card 1 and to go to card 2. So it's redundant. So it records to 1 and 2. I take a picture, it goes to 1 and 2. I take another picture, it goes to 1 and 2. So that I always have redundancy just in case something happens. Next, we've got record options for video. Now keep in mind, you do not have the option to record video redundant. So you can't have card 1 and card 2 saving video at the same time, but you can have standard, which means it will record to card 1, and then auto switch means it will continue on. If you go over the card's limit, you fill it up, it will switch over to the second. So I guess you could leave this on auto switch card if you ever think you're gonna do that. Then you have playback. This is where it's gonna play back the photos, card 1 or card 2. This is card 1, and we've got for video, same thing, card 1, and then the folder name is just where it's gonna play back from the folder, and I leave that set where it is. Would you like me to send you this free guide to capturing motion in low light situations? Well, if you said yes, just look for this orange box over on my website, put your name, email address in it, hit send it, and I will send you that guide for free. Next up, we've got file numbering. We've got continuous. I always leave it on continuous. So if I take 10 pictures, I put a new card in there, it's gonna start on number 11. I always do continuous. And what do you get? Up to 9,999, Stephen, before it resets? Yeah, so you get up to 9,999 before it then goes ahead and resets back to 0. File naming, this is where you can change it. This camera is set to 1H4A. You could totally change that if you want, like I could do Fro1, or you could do all of these different options. See that? Image plus image size, which I don't want. I leave it on the first one. Or I could change user settings right here. And this is much easier if you can touch the screen, which I can't. I can't touch this. He's back again. But yeah, let me see. Okay, has been selected. These settings on screen close after saving. Okay, goodbye. And I just leave it set to this. So back into the menu, format card. I always format my cards right before before a shoot. I won't say right before, but remember, when you format a card, I'm not gonna do it right now because I have some pictures on it, but you would hit OK and it would format the memory card, wiping it clean, allowing it to talk to the camera, and then you start fresh. You can see that I have 912 megabytes used on a 59.7 gigabyte card. That's available even though it's a 64 gigabyte card, but it tells you format card, all data will be lost. Do not format if you haven't backed up or saved your images yet. Another thing that I change is auto rotate. So this is interesting. It says on camera and on computer. I don't like when I get a vertical image on my camera that only shows up when the camera's horizontally small. So I turn it to just on the computer because I don't want the picture rotating to be vertical on a horizontal screen. So what I do is I turn my camera like this to look at the image so I can see it full screen much easier. Then we've got add camera rotation info. That is currently set to disabled and I leave it there. And date and time. This is where you can change the time zone and everything. It's pretty self-explanatory. Number 2 under the wrench, we've got language. So language, whatever languages. I was gonna curse, but I don't wanna curse. You can obviously change the language. You could pick your German, your French, your Dutch, Portuguese, whatever you want. I leave it in English because I don't speak any other languages. Video system, I leave NTSC. We've got help text, I leave on small. Next, we've got beep, which is set to touch right there. You could enable this to have beeping, or you could disable it to have no beeping, or in this case, it will only beep when you are doing touch to focus. Headphone volume, obviously you can set your headphone volume. Power savings, we have it set to 30 minutes so it doesn't go off, but this is where you would want to set it to like, we want the display to go off after 3 minutes to save power, but we have it so that we can continually record here without running into any issues. Eco mode, you can turn that on to save power as well. Next, we've got screen viewfinder display is set to auto 1 by default. So that means if you flip out the screen, it's only going to show you the screen and not show you the electronic viewfinder if you put your eye up against it. So you have to then put it back. Or you could do auto switching, which is if you do put your eye up to it and the viewfinder is still out, it's going to go ahead and auto switch. You just want to play with these to find the right setting for you. Screen brightness is for the back of your screen. Obviously, the brighter it is, if you're in a bright area, it's going to be easier to see. But there's a little secret here that Canon has done, and it's not really just Canon, but if it's super bright outside and you can't see the screen, just put your eye up to the viewfinder, because your face and your head will act, and your fro will act as a natural shade from the sun, allowing you to see the image much better in the viewfinder. Viewfinder brightness, I like to leave set to auto. The reason I do that is it gives me a better representation of what my exposure is. It's going to be super close. So if I'm in a bright area, it's going to brighten it. If I'm in a dark area, it's going to even it out and make it a little darker. Next up is screen viewfinder color tone. We leave that set to 2, which is where it's at by default. Fine-tune VF color tone, I don't mess with that. And then UI magnification is set to disabled, and I leave it exactly where it's at. Number 4, we've got HDMI resolution. I leave that to auto. Touch control, leave that on standard. Now, multifunction lock, remember when I talked about the lock many minutes ago at the beginning? This is where you can control what gets locked or what doesn't get locked. So you can either turn them all off, or if you just want to say we don't want touch control on, we can deselect all of the other ones, and then when you hit that, you can no longer have touch control. So that's that. We've got shutter at shutdown. So remember when I opened up the lens, it took the lens off the camera and the shutter was closed? You have the option where you could have the shutter actually be open and exposed when you turn the camera off. This is personal preference. I do like that it's closed when the camera is off. It gives me a little bit of extra security in protecting that sensor. Sensor cleaning, right now it's automatically set to at power off. So every time you turn off the camera, it's going to automatically clean the sensor. You could have it set to clean now. You could have it set to clean manually. Let me see, can we disable this? Let's see, automatically clean the sensor when the camera is turned on or off. Nope, that's a pain in the ass. And then we've got disabled. So there's a reason why you would kind of disable this. If you change lenses a lot and you have to now wait an extra fraction of a second for it to do the cleaning, that's an option where I may consider to actually just disable it. And then if I need to clean it, I go in there and I hit clean now every once in a while, and it will do the job for me. Number 5, we've got reset camera, which we're not gonna do because we just set it up. Most of it. So you don't want to do that. You've got custom shooting mode. Remember I talked about C1, C2, and C3? This is where you would go in and you would set those settings. So that's where you set them. We got battery info. So I've taken 17 shots and I've used 25% of the battery power here. The performance is all 3 green boxes is good. As the performance of the battery starts to go after years, which I've never really had major issues with batteries, we've usually replaced them by then or have new cameras, it will let you know that the battery life is getting shorter, but that's the same with all types of batteries. Copyright information. You can enter your name. It could be Jared Polin Frono's photo. That's your not your name. I mean, that's my name, but you would put your name in here, enter copyright details, so it's going to save that information in your metadata. I highly recommend that you do that so that your information is saved with every photo that you take. Now you've got your manual and software URL. So if you want to get to your manual, just point your camera at the back of this or go to that website and you can have the user guide that's not me explaining it to you. Certification logo display, we don't need to see that. And this is where you would go to update the firmware. Just make sure that it's on the latest firmware, which may be different the time that you're watching this from the time that we're recording this. Next up, we got the orange menu, or we call this like the custom control settings area, because this is where you can make really custom settings. But on the first page, I really don't change any of these. I don't change the bracketing, the number of bracketed shots. Look, if you want to change bracketed shots, that's like, say you wanted the proper exposure, then it would do 1 stop over, 1 stop under. If you want to do 7 shots, it would do 1 stop, 2 stop, 3 stops, and then 1 stop, 2 stops, 3 stops under, and then that regular one, that would be the 7. So that's where you can control your bracketed shots. Number 2, I don't change anything here as well. Custom buttons is where we change under 3. This is where it gets extreme. I mean, look at all the different custom buttons. On the left, you see the camera. That's for stills. And on the right, you see the video camera. That's custom buttons for there. It's great that it's split. So if you're in the video mode, the custom buttons are the ones from the right. If you're in the stills mode, it's the ones from the left. Let me scroll down here and show you some of the options. Look at all of the different options that you can set that specific dial to. It just keeps rotating through, and you just have to go through here and set up your settings. That one is currently set for a custom button on a lens, but you can totally go in there and change it any which way. There's lots of options here for you to go through. Next, we've got customize dials. So say you don't want the ISO to be set to this dial up here. See the picture it's showing you on the screen? That's this actual dial here. So if I don't want that to change that, I would maybe change this to the way that I like to do it. I like this to be my shutter speed. So I would change this to shutter speed. And then this other one, the front dial, top dial, I like to change to aperture. Now that's personal preference. That's just how I like to shoot. That's how I do it. I could change it the other way. I could make the front dial, I could make the top one shutter speed or the back dial aperture, or I could even make this spinny dial in the back aperture. It's personal preference depending on how you want to do your own shooting. So you have a lot of different options there. Then we've got clear custom settings, which we're not gonna do because we just changed them. Number 4, we've got, let's see, add cropping information is off. Audio compression, that's another thing we turn off because we don't want compressed audio. I don't change this, the Oscar the Grouch setting. I don't, let's see, release shutter without lens. Why would we want to take pictures without a lens on there? I mean, there is one reason, like wedding photographers, like you turn your lens around backwards and you kind of shoot through it. That's something that you could do, but that's one of the only reasons you would do that. Retract lens on power off is on. Add IPTC information is currently off. Number 5 is clear all of them, which we don't want to do. And then we move to the star menu, which is where you add my menu tab. This is where you can add things to your own menu. Configure my menu 1. So let me select an item. All right, I want to get to interval timer quickly. I could do this and I can register it to the page. And I think that's it. Oh, I have to hit set. I was going to try to touch the screen. And there we go. And now I'm gonna hit back, and now that is going to be set right there. See, interval timer, and then I hit another one for touch shutter. But that's it, guys. And by that's it, I mean that's a lot. That is how I would set up my camera for shooting stills. It's a lot of stuff, but hopefully I gave you enough information to get a good jump start. And then as you get better and more experienced, you can start tweaking these settings for your liking. Now that we finished showing you how I would set up the camera for your photo settings, there is a whole nother menu that is separate for your video settings. So I've already switched in off from the top dial to the video mode so that we can unlock the video settings so that we can get into the screen that we're looking at right now. And starting right here with red number 1, we've got shooting mode. There are 2 options with the R6. You've got full auto mode for shooting video, or you have full manual for shooting video. We like the full manual for shooting video. This is the time where you turn on auto ISO so that you can set your settings the way that you want them to be for your shutter speed and aperture, and then you let the camera smoothly make those transitions as you go from light areas and dark areas. So we set it to manual. But if you're new to this game, you may want to start off in full auto and just let the camera do what it needs to do. But as you get better, you can unlock more power and control when you move into manual mode. Now we've got movie recording quality. We can go in here and you can see, let's see, we've got all of these different options. We've got 4K at 60 frames, 4K at 30, 4K at 23.98, which is basically 4K at 24p. That is your more cinematic look. That's how we're filming like that right now, correct, Steven? Yep. Yeah, that's how we're filming right now, and that's how we film, I think, I would say 99.9% of our videos are filmed in this mode because it gives it that very cinematic look. When you shoot at the 60 frames per second, that gives you more of that video game look, that TV look. It doesn't have the cinematic feel, but try them out for yourselves and see which one works best for you. So you also have full HD options, and you just select the one. Generally speaking, we're in 4K at this one. Now, there is something called high frame rate. It's currently disabled, but when you do enable it, check this out. It tells you that audio is not recorded in high frame rate movies. So we hit enable, and now you can see that right here, the movie record size went to FHD, which is 1080 HD at 120 frames per second. When you shoot in this mode, this is where you want to do slow motion. Say someone's golfing and you want to analyze their swing, you go into this mode. If they're doing baseball or they're pitchers, you could slow them down. 120 frames per second, that's how you can slow it down. But remember, there will be no audio recorded when you're in that mode. So I'm gonna go to disable just for now. back in here. We've got movie cropping is currently disabled. What this means is when you enable it, it's going to punch into what's called Super 35. So it's going to give you a little more bang for your buck, a little more reach if you need it, if you're photographing or in this case, filming birds. It's going to give you a little bit more reach. Next, we've got sound recording. If you don't know what you're doing, audio, I almost said audio. I always mess up audio and auto. Well, you want to kind of leave it in auto if you don't know what you're doing. If you do know what you're doing, you go in here and you go into manual and you will control the audio yourself. You just have to know the levels. You don't want them peaking way too high into the red. Or you can totally disable it, which means you're not recording audio at all. So if you're in a situation where someone's like, "Are you recording audio?" You're like, "No, it's disabled." Then you want to make sure that it's disabled, but if you need it to get auto, I just did it again. If you needed to record audio, you would want to make sure that your audio is currently on. This is the attenuator and it's currently disabled. This is something that if you're going to do auto, you want to enable it. So it's going to raise and lower your levels as it sees fit. So it's going to try and keep it as uniform as possible. So that's what we recommend that you stay in. But for now, let me turn that to disable because I want to go back and show you the manual real quick. We've got manual, we've got record levels, watch. So let me just turn it all the way down. And being that I'm right here, you see how the levels aren't getting to 12. You want it at 12, correct, Stephen? Yeah. Around 12. So boom, I'm talking. That looks pretty good. We're dialing it up and I'm talking and I'm peaking right around 12. But if I get super loud, that's where you would want to go ahead and turn it down to compensate for it. And if we put it up super duper high, you see how it's going to the red. That means it's going to be peaking, and that's not where you want your audio to be. You're better off being slightly under than slightly over in this case. Moving on, gonna throw this back into auto just for now, back into the menu mode. Now we're jumping through to number 2, exposure compensation, same as before when we discussed it. ISO speed settings, we currently have it on auto. As I said before, it's kind of a good place to be unless you're locked off in a situation like this. If we're in a situation like we're shooting right now, we have our lights, the lights aren't changing, so we will lock our ISO in, we will lock our shutter speed and aperture in, and we don't want the camera making any changes. We don't want it to be like, oh, it's exposing for the white wall or it's exposing for the camera. You don't need to do anything extreme there, so you don't need auto ISO in those situations. You can set your speed range like we talked about before. If you don't want it to go past 25,000 or near 25,600, you'd be like, okay, don't go past 6,400 with that, and you have those options that you can control right there. Next up, we've got HDRPQ. This is something that's a lot more advanced and would take a whole video unto itself to explain, but if you are going to get into the more advanced world, you may want to dig into HDRPQ, but right now it's very difficult to explain in a quick video like this. Auto lighting optimizer, I leave off. Highlight tone priority, I leave off as well. We've got 1/8 stops increments. We have this disabled. We like to enable this so that you can go at 1/8 stops with your aperture. It gives you a little bit more control when you are shooting the video. Now, let me actually show you that in action. Check this out. We're at 5.6, but look at how I dial this down. You're at 4.07/8. So you have more control over your aperture when you activate that. So that's something that as you get a little more advanced, you can take control of. Are you tired of your friends and family looking at your photos and saying, these are the greatest things ever, and you're not really sure because you don't trust their opinions because they're not a professional photographer, but you want to get a professional photographer's opinion? Well, why don't you let me be your mentor? Head on over to froknosphoto.com/mentorship because over there you can sign up for 2 different things. One is a 45-minute live mentorship call on Zoom with me, and the other is a 15-minute recorded rapid fire critique. So if you want to get some real feedback about your work, go ahead and sign up for one of those 2 options. Now, let's get back to the video. Moving on to number 3, white balance. This is important. I know we talked about this for stills, but with the white balance, you are baking this into the file because in essence, your video is one big JPEG, right? So whatever your settings are in terms of your white balance, it makes it very difficult to change it after the fact. You can make subtle tweaks, but this is something that you want to make sure when you're shooting, either you're doing auto white balance, but know that that may change from situation to situation, or in this lighting situation, we know what temperature are these lights? 56? Yeah, these lights are 5600 degrees Kelvin, so we set it to 5600 degrees Kelvin because we know that it's going to be balanced the way that we want it. You've got your custom white balance you can go in and set, which is what we do. White balance correction, picture style. This is very important when it comes to video. If you were to go ahead and leave this in monochrome, then you're just going to get monochrome video. If you were to do, let's say, landscape, but you were interviewing someone and the colors were off, then your colors are going to be off in your video. So this is something that you want to lock in, or as a recommendation, standard's going to be pretty good, and you can do some tweaks after the fact depending on what software you're using to edit the video. Just remember, this is going to be baked in. Next up, we've got Canon log settings. Now this is a setting that gives you more flexibility in post. It basically overrides all of the picture styles and makes everything super flat, but that means you're left with a super flat video right out of the camera. But if you want to take more control of it in your editing software, you then have to color grade it, and then you have more control. It just takes a lot more time. Now for something like this, we don't shoot in Canon log when we're making these videos because this is a well over an hour-long video. It would take a lot of time to do. Moving on to number 4. Lens aberration corrections, I leave this exactly where the camera has them set. I don't really worry about that. High ISO speed noise reduction. So this is what I disable this. I don't want the noise reduction. I don't want the smoothing. I rather see the noise and the grain myself. I think that's just much better to have a sharper image or video. But remember, everything we're doing in this section is just affecting your video. So where we set picture style, that's affecting your video, that's not affecting your stills. So remember that. You may confuse the two, but don't do that. Next up, we've got HDR movie recording. It's currently off. We've got time-lapse movie is currently disabled because I'm plugged into the HDMI port right here. But if you're doing time-lapse movie, go into that setting and play with time-lapse movies. That's a fun one to play with. Say you're out in the mountains and the clouds are going by, and you can then speed it up in the camera. It looks really cool. That's a great feature. Number 6, we've got movie self-timer is currently off. It's the same thing, like you press the button, if you're at 10 seconds, the movie won't start for 10 seconds. It's kind of a weird thing. I don't even know why we would have that on. Remote control is currently disabled, but you can go ahead and enable that if you want to control with a remote control. IS image stabilizer mode, this is a good one to go into. IS is on. If you're not on a tripod, you kind of want it on. The image stabilization in this camera is fantastic. But say you're running around, or you're, let's see, on a go-kart hand holding this, and you want to get even more stability, you can turn your digital IS on, but that's going to crop your image in a little more. It may add a little bit of warping because there's some digital processing going on there, but it does do a good job if you need that extra stability because of shake. But generally speaking, we leave this off unless we absolutely need it. Next up, we've got shutter button function for movies. It's set to meter plus servo for half press. Now, for full press, it has no function. Now, you have an option that you can have it start and stop recording. So where you take photos with the shutter button, you can also set this to start and stop recording video. So why not set that, really? Or if you don't want to set that because you don't want to confuse the two for whatever reason, you can just hit the red button, which is up here on the top of the camera, which we talked about at the very beginning of this video. Continuing on, we're going to number 8. Isn't it great that we can move through this much quicker than the last one for photos? We've got overheat control. This is something that you want to put on in case you're shooting in a super hot area and the camera's like, I'm getting too hot right now. It's so Hansel in here. Well, you want that warning to know that maybe we should take a break. We don't really get overheating with these R6s. We haven't seen it, so just be cognizant of that. You should leave that on. Next, we've got HDMI display. Now, unless you're shooting the way that we are, where we need to show you the HDMI out with this display information, this is not really something that you're gonna go into too often. Now, time codes, if you're trying to connect or record with multiple cameras and you wanna sync up the time codes, you're shooting movies, that's something that you use. We've never used timecode in any of the 3,000 plus videos that we've done, but that is where it is. And look at that. We're now up to the AF menu. So we've got the AF method is currently AF with the, it's not a lock on, it's a smiley face. I still don't see that. Why do I always see L? I guess that's just me. It's set to subject detect for people. If you're doing animals, of course you're gonna go to animals. Eye detection is enabled. It's great for shooting movies to have it be able to find the eye, especially if you're filming yourself and you're sitting in this chair, you can have it find your eye. Now we do that for a lot of our videos where I'm moving around. We let the camera find my eye because it does a fantastic job at doing it. Movie Servo AF is currently enabled. We like that. We've got touch and drag AF settings. Same as before, it's currently disabled, but you can set it just like with your still images. This is controlling how you can move the focusing points yourself if you're shooting video. Then we have focus mode, which is set to AF, or if you want to control manual focus, you can go ahead and control manual focus as well. We kind of stick to autofocus now because the autofocus is just so amazing with these cameras. Now we've got manual focus peaking settings. So if you're going to shoot in manual focus, you're going to want to turn peaking on. You're going to want to put the level high works, and you've got your different color settings that you could use. So this is to help you find the focus when you are shooting manually. Now we go back to the menu. Focus guide is currently off. If you're going to shoot in manual focus, you definitely want to put that focusing guide on because the camera is going to be like, nope, 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 yep, nope, 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 yep. So basically, that's something that you put on so that the camera can help you get that manual focus and get it right. Actually, let me show you this. So I'm going to turn focus guide back to on. But there is one other thing that I need to change under menu 1 is I need to go to focus mode and put it into manual focus, which I have here. So here you go. Watch this. You see how they're not lined up? And it's like, oh, how do we do this? Oh, I'm missing. You want to find it when it gets to the green box. Oh, it's so subtle. It's so subtle. Line up. There it is. And that's telling me that it's in focus. Why wouldn't we let the camera do this? I don't know. Why would we want to do this ourselves? I don't know either, but that's what it looks like. So I'm going to go back here. We're going to go back into auto, go to menu 2. I'm going to turn the focus guide off and then move over to number 3. Movie Servo AF speed is right here. It's always on. Now this is where you can set it so if you want it to be super fast, it's going to move super fast. Or if you want more of that cinematic pull look where it's going to go slower in and out, then you would go ahead and dial this down even further to slow. Or you could go up 2 more clicks from the default, which is super fast, and that's where you can go to have that super fast autofocus where you don't need that cinematic pull. We've got Movie Servo AF track sensitivity is currently set to 0. Obviously you could go to lock on or you could go to responsive. Let me just hit the info. It explains to you exactly what it is. Lock on responds less sensitively to other objects. Kind of like me, I respond less sensitively to things. Like somebody's like, I had a bad day. I'm like, cool, good job. That's less sensitive. But if we wanted it to be more sensitive, it'd be like, I had a bad day. And I'd be like, sorry. Yeah, anyway, that. Lens electronic manual focus, I leave this set where it is. Switch tracking subject is currently set to 1. You know, you have initial priority, switch subject. Same thing as before. We hit the info, we can read. Set the ease of switching to other subjects from the subject current tracked. Takes effect when the AF method is set to smiley face plus tracking, large zone, the different options that it gives you. Yeah, I mean, this is just you play with it and you find which one works best for you. We leave it, I generally leave it to 1 and it's been fine for what I've been shooting. Lens drive when AF is impossible, we let that keep going just like with stills. We've got limit AF methods, same as before. You can turn it off, so if you want to switch between them and you don't want this one on, you would just go ahead and turn it off in your menu so you don't see it come up anymore. AF method selection control, that means if you hit the MFN button, you can change your autofocusing options right from there. It's like a quick key to get right to that. And then number 4, we've got focus ring rotation, leave exactly where it is. RF lens, MF focus ring, same thing. And I leave this set exactly the same way as well. Next, we're getting into the playback modes. same as before. I don't change anything in the playback modes here. It's basically the same for video as it is for stills. Same thing with Wi-Fi. We already talked about how you can set that up. Earlier when I said, why would you set the self-timer to 10 seconds? One of the things I used to do when I started shooting video way back in the day is I would hit record and then I'd have to go sit in my seat. Well, it would have been cool if I could have hit the button and then 10 seconds later it started. It would have saved me some extra time because that camera only gave me 5 minutes of shooting. Now you got 29 minutes and 59 seconds that you can do, so it's not that big of a deal, or you could just cut the beginning off. But that's where I would rather use the remote app so that I could see that it's in focus, and then I can also hit record and stop recording right from that. So you would set that here the same way that we showed you earlier. Wrench menu, exactly the same as before, so we don't really need to go through that again. And the custom setting menu, we don't need to go through that again either because we already set it. And finally, you've got my menu as well, where you can add more things that you want to jump to, like I had interval timer and touch shutter, whatever you want to put there. If you want to get to auto ISO and turn that off, you could do that. But the funny thing is, these menus used to be amazing because that was the only place we could customize things. But now you have so many options with the Q buttons to get right to the settings that you need quickly, and we're going to jump into showing you that now. Now let me show you the Q menu, what happens when you hit that. Right here on the back of the camera, we've got the Q button. The Q button's super powerful. You don't have to go into the menu for very much because the Q button's right here. Now, you can't custom set the Q menu, which would be really cool. Maybe in the future they'll come up with a firmware update where we can customize what goes in here, because not everything that's in here is really needed for what I use. So here you can change between your manual, video, or full auto. You could also touch the screen to make the changes. I have to use the joystick, but here you could be like, oh, I want to use the lock-on tracking, the smiley face, or I want to switch to any of these different AF modes. You can control all of that right from here. You can set your different movie record settings. That's not something that I really would change too often while I'm shooting, but when you're setting up, it's good to have. Next, we have the volume settings. You can control that here. If you're manually doing it, it's really good to get in there to be able to control that yourself. Actually, I'm doing it. I'm moving it up. You see that? And now I'm moving it down. This is what you would see if you were looking at the back of the camera when you are shooting video. Here you have this. See, this is kind of confusing. You don't want to get confused here because this shows you that the hand is off. But what the hand is off for your IS is actually movie digital IS is currently off. So just make sure that you're not like, oh, I want that on, and then you go ahead and you turn it on, and you're like, wait a second, I didn't want it on, I actually wanted it off. We've got select the card to record to. Currently it would be card 1. We've got auto white balance, so you can change to the different white balances. You can change the temperatures. You can do auto white balance, set priority for white priority. That gives you very white whites instead of just like off yellow, depending on the lighting situation that you're in. Then we have picture style that you can control from the right here if you need to quickly make a change to your picture style. And then we have auto light optimizer is currently disabled. But let me show you the, Steven, can we get the bobblehead here? I want to show people how the tracking works in IAF. So let me take off this a little lower, right there, come a little closer. You see that? You see how it's locked on his eye? And by eye, I mean me, that's my bobblehead. Boom. It's constantly tracking, and I can feel the autofocus moving at the same time. Oh, and the lighting looks really good on that bobblehead. And boy, can we turn him around? Can we see his butt real fast? Let's see, does it have butt AF? No butt AF, but it found my whole back, and it looks great. All right, perfect, Steven. Thank you. So I'm gonna put the lens cap back on here. It's really easy to use, but now let me actually record a video. So I'm gonna hit the red button here. Boom, and this is what you're seeing on your screen. We are seeing it count up in time. You have 29 minutes and 59 seconds of record time. You can see that on the right-hand side, we have the record button. Down there, we have auto ISO at the bottom right. Then we've got our aperture in the middle that we can change. You can see exactly how to do that. Your shutter speed, you can see how to change your shutter speed. And we see that servo AF is on. That's your continuous autofocus. To stop recording, we go ahead and we hit stop just like that, and you're done recording. Now let me switch into photos so I can show you the Q menu for photos. So let's go ahead and hit the Q button. Once again, same thing. we can go through and you have a couple of different options here, but you can see that you've got your AF method is right here. IAF is enabled. You've got your servo, or you could switch to one shot. We have this set to RAW and RAW, which means that I'm gonna have RAW files going to both slot 1 and slot 2. Right there, it only shows you I have something in slot 1, and that's why it has a little arrow next to it that shows you that's what it's being written to. We've got drive mode. Ooh, this is cool. Check this out. You've got high speed continuous plus, high speed continuous, low speed continuous. You've got your self timer that you can change. This is high plus mode. We're gonna click on that. We're gonna take a bunch of pictures just for fun. Oh yeah, you can see that we're counting down, 27:51. Oh wow, that writes really fast. Good job, camera. Nice job, camera. Back into the Q mode. Then we've got metering mode. Switch different metering modes if you want. Normally I would just touch, I had to hit down. We've got the anti-flicker. Ooh, that's so good to have anti-flicker right where you need it to be in case you need to do that. You've got your auto white balance settings, your picture styles, as well as the auto lighting optimizer is disabled. And then you've got, okay, cropping, if you want to be your 1.6 crop, your 1:1, 4:3, or movie 16:9 shape. We talked about all of that earlier, but let me show you the autofocus and take some pictures here. Steven, can we get Bobblehead back here again? All right, we're getting Bobblehead back on the screen. So you see how it's currently dark right now? Well, he looks pretty good, but check this out. Let me change my aperture. You see how it's dark? I'm getting, you're good, hold that, Steven. You see how it's super dark? But as I change my aperture, I see it perfectly right in my viewfinder. So here we go, we're locked on. Go ahead, move them around, and it's tracking the eyes. Taking pictures, boom. All right, hold it. I want to get out of the this H mode. So I'm going back into Q, because what I want to show you, it was stuttering just a little bit, but that's because it's shooting so many photos. So now we're in H. There you go. It's a little slower, but there's almost no blackout here, and that's great. Oh yeah, look at the autofocus just tracking me, going forward, going back, and that's it. Thank you, Steven. And that's how you shoot the pictures. Let me jump in here and say, if you're finding this video helpful, could you please hit that subscribe button? Subscribing really helps out, and it also means you won't miss any of my videos when they go live. But also be sure to check out the archive of videos that I have, because I have over 3,000 videos. That's 3, right? Yes. 3,000 videos that are fun and informative and are gonna help you become a better creative. Now, let's get back to the video. Here's another interesting menu that you can access from the outside, that MFN button. If we hit that, look, we can make all these changes. You see how the arrow, the dial is showing, I turn the top dial, I can change the top dial. And then if we wanna change the bottom dial, it says rotate. So I could change my ISO quickly from the back of the camera just by hitting this button. Actually, my eye can be up to the viewfinder and I can just make these changes. That's what's great about this powerful button, the MFN button. But also, if I hit the info button, watch how it cycles through. My histogram popped up small in the top right-hand corner. Then I do this and I've got this powerful display with the Q. We could hit the Q again, and now you can change all of these settings on the back of your camera. So you just cycle through the info to find which one works best for you. Oh boy, let me get out of that by hitting the shutter button halfway down. And now we're back to seeing all this information. See, I hit the play button and I hit the zoom in. Oh, I just hit the magnifying glass to go in like that. And then I rotate the back dial, there it is, to zoom in and to zoom out. You could just touch the screen and do this. Then to zoom back out, I just hit the magnifying glass again. I can rotate the dial back here to go through the images. You could also swipe through on the screen to change it. I can hit info to see the info for the photo. We set this all earlier. You can see the histogram, the focusing points, all of your settings, and that's it, guys. That's replaying your images and how to play them. If we want to Oscar the Grouch them, you would hit the trash can. It warns you, do you want to erase this? I don't, so I'm not going to erase it, and then I come back here. As a recommendation, I always say, don't delete photos in the camera. You don't want to accidentally delete something that you might have liked, unless it's totally dark or black or white, and I still wouldn't do it. You got plenty of room on these cards. So there you have it, guys. That's your user's guide. Now I know it's a long video, and I know it was a long video. If you got to this far, hashtag down below, I got this far. I'd like to hear that you did get this far, and let me know what you think about this user guide. How beneficial was it to you? Now, I would love to go into super details about everything and make a video about every single setting, but that would take 8 to 10 hours of video making, and the whole idea with this is to get you started. Give you a good starting point so that you can get started in this world of shooting and understanding the settings, and then you can tweak them from there into the future as you get better and more experienced. So I want to thank you once again for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. I have a text line up on the screen, but that's where I'm going to leave it, guys. Don't forget to give this a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button so you never miss one of my videos. Jared, PolinFronosPhoto.com. See ya.